Before you judge me for ruining my daughter's wedding, let me ask you one question. What would you do if your 6-year-old grandson crawled out from under the head table holding a wallet, and the ID inside showed a different name than the groom? I'm Helen Carter, 60, a Chicago grandmother and former criminal profiler. I thought danger was behind me. Then I read, Mark Townsend, while the room cheered for Ben Walker. My blood ran cold. I texted an old U.S. Marshal. 3 aliases, 2 dead spouses, 1 accident, no convictions. Meanwhile, the groom was already circling our attorney about my grandson's special needs trust. Feel that drop in your stomach? I did too. Stay with me, because a smiling man walked into my family, and I had to choose between being polite and being the wall that stopped him. I'm Helen Carter, 60 years old, a grandmother from Chicago, and once a criminal profiler. After decades chasing shadows, I had finally learned to savor quiet mornings, coffee on my balcony, evening calls with my daughter Laura, and weekends with my grandson Eli. I thought the danger was behind me. My life now revolved around bedtime stories, birthday candles, and the sound of a child's laughter. But peace has a way of cracking when you least expect it. At Laura's wedding in Savannah, I was watching Eli play near the head table when he crawled under it to retrieve a toy car. He came back clutching something odd, a leather wallet. "Grandma," he whispered, showing me the ID inside. The name read Mark Townsend. But the face staring back was the same man everyone was cheering as Laura's new husband, Ben Walker. My pulse skipped. The profiler in me stirred awake. This was no innocent mistake. I slipped the wallet into my clutch and smiled for the room, because that's what mothers of the bride do. Inside, my hands shook. I excused myself from a circle of cousins and ducked behind a curtain near the courtroom, where the brass smell of steam trays mixed with gardenias. I took a photo of the ID and texted it to the one person who never ignored me, Kincaid, a retired U.S. Marshal who still answered my late-night questions like I was his kid sister. Found at my son-in-law's wedding. Run it, quietly. His reply came before the typing dots disappeared, on it. Keep your distance. I took a breath and rejoined the party. The band slid from Motown into Sinatra, the bar kept pouring, and Ben Walker, my new son-in-law, moved through the room like he owned the tide. He had a politician's smile, generous, unsticky, never landing long enough to show a seam. He kissed Laura's forehead, high-fived Eli, told the florist she'd captured the exact geometry of joy. People melted around him. He reached me near the dessert table. "Helen," he said warmly, like we'd known each other for years. "You did a beautiful job raising Laura. I'm honored to join your family." A script. Polished. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "You two looked happy up there." He laughed, easy as sunlight. "Happier than I deserve." His eyes flicked to my clutch, then back to my face. "Is Eli enjoying himself?" "Weddings are long for 6-year-olds, I said. He found a little adventure to keep busy. Boys and their treasure hunts. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a confidence. "You know," Laura mentioned the trust. "I've been looking into some phenomenal programs, integrative neurotherapy, high-yield outcomes, waitlists a mile long. I'd love to walk you through them. As the family, it's on us to be proactive." A polite way of saying, I plan to steer it. My smile did not move. "The trustee is Gerald Finch. We don't make changes without him." "Of course." His expression didn't falter, but I watched something very small shudder in his eyes. "Gerald and I are already in touch. He's a gem." Gem. I tasted metal. Finch had been our attorney for 15 years, risk-averse, allergic to novelty. "That's surprising," I said lightly. "Gerald doesn't like new." Ben's lips curved. "He likes good." My phone buzzed. I excused myself again, pretending to adjust my shawl. In the hallway, I opened Kincaid's message. 3 names stacked like a staircase: Mark Townsend, Greg Hale, Daniel Reese. A note followed. Same photo face morphed across Midwest DMV records. 2 dead spouses. 1 accident, fiancé. No convictions. Mixed jurisdictions. Another bubble. Watch for pressure around vulnerable beneficiary funds. He targets caregivers. Sends experts. My throat tightened. I typed, "Laura's kid has a special needs trust." The answer came fast. "Then you are the obstacle." When I turned back toward the ballroom, Ben was already outside the French doors, kneeling so his eyes matched Eli's. He held a napkin and twisted it into a little sailboat, the kind you float in a punch bowl. Eli giggled. Ben glanced up, saw me watching, and lifted the boat in a salute, charming as sin. I collected my grandson. Buddy, Grandma needs a dance partner. Ben stood smoothly. Save me the next one, Captain. Eli nodded solemnly. Okay. On the dance floor, I counted Eli's steps like rosary beads and laid out my plan. Keep alert, keep kind, gather facts. With predators, fear is a currency, I would not spend it here. When the song ended, Laura swooped in, glowing and breathless. Mom, you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, I said. Quick question. Why is Ben corresponding with Finch? She frowned, impatient. Because Gerald manages Eli's trust and Ben wants to help. He knows people, Mom. He's trying. Trying what? To be a good stepdad. Could you not make today about your old job? The old job. The knife slid in without resistance. I swallowed what I wanted to say and kissed her cheek. You look beautiful. By the bouquet toss, Kincaid had sent me a courthouse clipping. A widow in Missouri who died on a wet staircase. An insurance rider changed 3 weeks prior. An anonymous tip that never panned out. I felt the old machinery in my head engage, pattern, motive, access, escalation. The room blurred into pieces on a corkboard, strings running between them. After the last sparkler fizzled, Ben appeared at my elbow again, ushering Laura toward the elevator with their luggage. We're slipping out, he said, voice pitched for intimacy. Early flight. To where? I asked. Orlando, Laura chirped. Then Port Canaveral. Quick cruise, a surprise. Something in me clicked. Who planned it? Ben, she said proudly, squeezing his hand. He thinks of everything. I hugged her long enough to hide my face. When the doors closed, Ben met my eyes over her shoulder and mouthed, "We'll chat soon." Not a promise. A warning. Back in my hotel room, I spread the photos and names across the desk like tarot. I called Kincaid. He picked up on the first ring. You're in it, he said. I'm in it, I agreed. He's moving fast. He already touched the attorney. Document everything. Loop local PD if you get something solid. Solid won't be paperwork. It'll be behavior. He paused. You still carry? I carry judgment. I stared at my suitcase. But I have friends who carry other things. A message flashed from an unknown number. Great meeting you tonight, Helen. Let's coffee tomorrow? Love to pick your brain about Eli's needs. B. He had my number. Of course he did. I typed back. Tomorrow doesn't work. We'll coordinate through Gerald. The dots appeared, then vanished. A minute later, another text arrived, this time from a known contact, a private investigator I'd used before, Carla Ruiz. Heard you pinged Kincaid. Need eyes? I'm in Savannah on a job. Yes, I wrote. Bridegroom with aliases. Possible beneficiary targeting. He's headed south tomorrow. She called. Name? Tonight he's Ben Walker. Wallet says Mark Townsend. Kincaid found Greg Hale and Daniel Reese. Carla whistled. Busy boy. You want tail or paper? Both. Start with travel. If he's flying to Orlando, I want confirmation. Port Canaveral was mentioned. Cruise lines? Maybe just a dock, I said. Where people sign things they don't understand. Copy. I'll run manifests and hotel blocks. Text me his photo. I sent the best one I had. Ben laughing under fairy lights, champagne lifted, handsome in the exact way that makes juries forgive. Then I stood at the window and watched the city lights shiver on the river. Somewhere below, newlyweds toasted a future that didn't belong to them yet. A soft knock sounded at my door. I checked the peephole. Ben, alone, jacket off, bow tie in his pocket. I opened it a fraction, chain still on. It's late. He smiled, apologetic. 2 minutes. I hate leaving things vague with family. I like vague, I said. It keeps people safe. He leaned against the frame, close enough for me to smell the cologne, cedar and something darker. You and I are going to work well together. You see around corners. I do, too. We're on the same team. Teams have rules. And leaders, he said softly. In a family, that's usually the matriarch. I respect that. His eyes cooled a degree. But sometimes gatekeeping looks like love when it's really control. Laura's told me how hard it's been. He wanted me defensive. I let the words float past like leaves in water. Good night, Ben. He didn't push. That told me everything about the phase we were in. He was still courting the gate. He'd escalate when charm failed. They always do. He tucked the bow tie into his pocket and stepped back. Sleep well, Helen. Big week ahead. After he left, I slid the chain free, cracked the door, and checked the empty hallway. My phone buzzed again. Carla, got him on a 6:10 a.m. to MCO. 2 passengers, 1 ticket comped via cruise affiliate. I'll meet you at the airport. Also, FYI, his best man paid cash for a locker at the train station tonight. Could be nothing. Could be a stash. I texted back. Photograph everything. If you see our lawyer's name anywhere, wake me. I lay down fully clothed, the way I used to on surveillance nights, and let the old vigilance settle over me like armor. The danger wasn't behind me after all. It had walked down an aisle in a rented tux and kissed my daughter's hand while my grandson laughed. Morning would come fast, and when it did, I'd be ready to stop being polite. Dawn at the Savannah airport looked harmless. Families dragging roller bags, honeymooners in flip-flops, business travelers clutching coffee. But once you've profiled predators, you stop seeing crowds, you see patterns. The ones moving too smooth, the ones scanning without turning their heads. Carla Ruiz stood near the Delta counter, her dark hair tucked under a baseball cap, aviators hiding her eyes. She nodded once when she spotted me. Your groom's already checked in. Gate C7. Laura's at his side, glued to him like ivy. He's good. Real good. I followed her gaze. Ben, or Mark, or Greg, or whoever he wanted to be today, was laughing with the ticket agent, one arm draped over Laura's shoulders. My daughter beamed as if she'd won the lottery. She never noticed how his fingers drummed against the counter, restless, calculating. Where's Eli? I whispered. Home with a sitter. I tailed the kid last night. No sign he's in play, yet. Yet. That word tasted bitter. We moved down the concourse, keeping 2 families between us and the couple. Ben carried himself like a man who belonged everywhere. He chatted up strangers, tipped a porter, kissed Laura's temple. Nothing screamed danger. That was his trick, no scream, just silence. Carla angled her phone toward me. Got more hits. The aliases line up with probate court filings. Always widows, always sudden deaths, always new wills notarized within weeks. He's clean on violent records, but messy around inheritances. And Gerald Finch? I asked. She swiped. Bingo. 2 emails cross-referencing trust structures. Finch is feeding him pathways. I clenched my jaw. Finch had been in our dining room, sipping my coffee, promising Eli would be protected. Now he was the fox guarding the henhouse. At the gate, Laura leaned into Ben's chest as he checked his watch. She looked young, softer than she had since high school. He stroked her hair like she was porcelain. My stomach turned. Carla murmured, "Want me to spook him? 1 phone call from a TSA buddy and he's off this flight." I shook my head. If he bolts, we lose him. I need Laura to see the proof herself. She won't believe me until the mask slips. Carla studied me. Dangerous game. He smells you already. She wasn't wrong. Ben's eyes flicked across the waiting area, and for half a breath they landed on me. He didn't flinch. He just smiled like he'd found an old friend in the crowd. My blood chilled. The loudspeaker crackled. Boarding for Orlando. Carla tapped my arm. I can stay on them through security and meet you down there. You sure you want to follow? I'm not letting my daughter sail into a trap. We split, Carla boarding under a cover ticket she'd bought, me slipping out toward long-term parking where my rental waited. Storm clouds gathered overhead, heavy as iron. The drive to Port Canaveral was 4 hours of wet asphalt and windshield wipers keeping time with my thoughts. Every mile took me closer to the man who had set his sights on Eli's trust. I replayed Laura's words, "He's trying to be a good stepdad," until they felt like knives. By the time I reached the port, the sky had split wide open, rain lashing sideways. Cruise banners flapped in the wind, tourists huddled under umbrellas, and there, under the awning, stood Ben and Laura with their luggage. Carla emerged from the crowd, dripping wet but steady. "Dockside office," she said, nodding toward a glass building. "They've got paperwork waiting. Offshore accounts disguised as medical funding. He's selling her a fairy tale." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a glossy photo. Ben, different haircut, darker beard, standing graveside in a black suit. The caption scribbled on the back read, "Funeral of Margaret Willis, 2018." His arm rested around another woman's shoulders, grief etched perfectly into his face. Widow number 3, Carla said grimly. Found it in a small-town newspaper archive. Same playbook. I clutched the photo. Time to break the spell. We approached. Laura looked up, startled. Mom? What are you doing here? Ben's smile didn't falter, though I saw the flicker in his jaw. Helen, you braved the storm for us? I held up the photo between 2 fingers. Recognize this, Ben? Or should I call you Mark? Greg? Daniel? Laura's eyes darted to the picture, confusion clouding her features. What is this? Proof, I said evenly. Proof that your new husband has buried more than vows. That every woman before you ended up 6 feet under or 6 figures short. Ben chuckled softly, low enough that only I could hear. You're spinning tales again. Laura, she used to chase criminals for a living. Old habits die hard. Carla stepped forward, badge clipped discreetly to her belt. Not tales. Records. We've got aliases, widows, bank accounts. You're done, Walker. For the first time, his expression cracked, just a hairline fracture, but enough. Laura gasped. Ben? He reached for her hand, soothing, rehearsed. Darling, this is a mistake. They're confusing me with someone else. I cut him off. Then why did Finch email you draft documents with Eli's trust number in the subject line? That did it. Laura jerked her hand back as if burned. Security guards moved in, alerted by Carla's contacts. Ben's eyes darted, calculating exits. Rain pounded against the glass as the moment stretched taut. Then he made his move, shoving the photo into the puddle at our feet, spinning toward a maintenance ramp. He vanished into the storm, swallowed by gray sheets of rain before the guards could grab him. Laura stood frozen, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. Mom, what have I done? I wrapped my arms around her trembling shoulders. You married a ghost. But ghosts leave trails, and we'll follow. Carla touched her earpiece. We've got teams combing the port. He won't stay vanished long. Predators never do. I looked at my daughter, her dream collapsing in her hands, and whispered the words I'd promised myself years ago. I won't let him hurt you. Or Eli. Not ever. And for the first time that day, she didn't argue. She just cried into my shoulder as thunder rolled across the harbor. Would you like me to continue straight into the Chicago ambush scene with the syringe for the next 5,000 character installment, or build slower tension with Laura processing the betrayal and Gerald Finch's role starting to surface? Laura's sobs came in small, shuddering waves. I held her until the worst passed, until the thunder moved farther out over the water and the rain softened to a steady hiss against the glass. When she finally lifted her face, the wedding makeup had surrendered. My girl looked 12 again, stunned after falling off a bicycle. I didn't see it, Mom, she whispered. How could I not see it? Because he made you feel safe, I said. Good predators imitate safety first. Carla handed over a small packet of tissues and cleared her throat. Port police logged the incident. I've got a bolo out with his aliases. Surveillance pulled him heading north along the fence line. He'll dump the suit, melt into tourists. I'll keep working angles, but don't expect an arrest tonight. Laura's gaze dropped to the ruined photo in the puddle. Was that really him at a funeral? Third time, Carla said. Widow. Payout. Vanish. Laura squeezed the tissues into a tight ball. I need a shower. I need to burn this dress. You need to breathe, I said. And you need to call Gerald. Tell him no discussions with Ben. Nothing moves without you present. She nodded automatically, then stopped. Wait. You said emails from Gerald to Ben. Why would he? Because men like Ben don't knock on doors, insiders open them. I didn't say it. I just took her phone from her shaking hand, scrolled to Finch's number, and hit call. He picked up on the second ring, voice warm, avuncular, the tone of a man who smelled like leather chairs and framed diplomas. Laura, you two sailing yet? Gerald, I said. Silence. Then the chuckle that wasn't a chuckle. Helen. Always a pleasure. We're at the port. There will be no changes to Eli's trust. Any documents you drafted for Ben Walker are to be withdrawn and archived. I'll need copies. I'm afraid you're mistaken, he said smoothly. Ben merely asked general questions about special therapies. Perfectly appropriate for a stepfather. Then you won't mind forwarding those emails now. Helen, he sighed, paternal. This is a joyful week for your family. Let's keep anxiety in its lane. Carla mouthed, speaker. I tapped the icon. Laura's voice shook. Gerald, did you give Ben access to my son's trust? Another small silence, the kind that says yes while reaching for no. Access? Certainly not. We discussed hypotheticals. End all hypotheticals, I said. And if you feel compelled to delete anything, remember, deletion is a record, too. He tried humor. Still the profiler. Still the mother. I ended the call and forwarded Carla the number. Map his call logs if you can. I want to know who else is in his orbit. Carla's phone vibrated. She glanced, grimaced. You're not going to like this. Finch just pinged a number in Orlando that traces to a shell consultancy used in 2 other widow cases. He's not naive, Helen. He's in it. Rain hammered the awning again, sudden and hard. Laura flinched. I want to go home. We drove to the hotel Carla had booked under a generic name, quiet, businesslike, with carpet designed to hide stains. I ordered soup for Laura and hot tea for myself. The steam fogged my glasses. For a moment the room blurred into the same soft haze I used to feel when a case finally clicked into place. Mom, Laura said from the bed, voice small, please don't say I told you so. I would never. I set the tea down and sat beside her feet. But I am going to say this once, you didn't cause him. You crossed paths with him. Different thing. She nodded, eyes shiny. What do we do now? Now, I said, we become boring. We go home. We lock finances. We document. We let him come to us where I control the ground. Carla leaned against the door, arms crossed. I'll keep the port hot for 12 hours. After that he's vapor. He'll surface, I said. Ego like his can't stand a closed door. She smirked. Then we'll hold it shut. By dawn we were on a flight to Chicago. I pressed my forehead to the window and watched the Atlantic peel away, gray and endless. When the wheels lifted, I sent Kincaid a concise update and asked for a quiet liaison at CPD, someone who still remembered my name for the right reasons. He replied with a number and 3 words, they'll back you. Back in my apartment, I made oatmeal and oversugared it so Eli would eat. He appeared in dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up, the weight of the last 2 days mercifully light on his shoulders. Grandma, he announced, the hotel had pancakes shaped like Mickey. We'll do better, I promised. We'll make Stegosaurus pancakes. He grinned. With spikes? With extra spikes. Laura watched us from the doorway, her face gray with exhaustion. He asked for Ben last night, she said softly. Just once. Then he forgot. He'll keep forgetting, I said. We'll help him. After breakfast I moved through a checklist. Freeze on all non-essential accounts. New passwords. 2-factor authentication on Laura's email, the bank portals, Eli's medical apps. I changed the code on my building's front door and called the property manager about the cameras in the lobby. Then I opened a new notebook and printed Finch at the top of page 1. I wrote everything I knew about him, the first time we retained him, the arguments he'd diffused about occupational therapy coverage, the way he never let my coffee get cold in his hand. Charm is a soft glove for a hard grip. I underlined that, twice. At noon, the intercom buzzed. I checked the monitor. A delivery man held a white box tied with a gold ribbon. From who? I asked. He shrugged. Card inside. I told him to leave it, waited until he walked away, then opened the package on the hallway table, not the kitchen. Inside, chocolate truffles, beautiful and anonymous. No card. Carla arrived 5 minutes later with a portable test kit. She snapped open the lid, swabbed a truffle, and watched for the color shift. When nothing changed, she still sealed the box in an evidence bag. Even if they're clean, she said, they're not for eating. We were still labeling the bag when Laura's phone rang. Gerald, she mouthed, and put it on speaker. He sounded flustered. Laura, we seem to have a misunderstanding. A colleague in Florida called me. He says you were agitated at the port yesterday, accusing your husband of. He's not my husband, she said. And yes, I accused him. With proof. A crisp inhale. Well, be that as it may, I have prepared a conservative amendment that simply gives your new household more flexibility in educational. Stop, I said. He pretended not to hear me. And therapeutic spending. You've always trusted my counsel. I trusted my husband's corpse not to fall out of the coffin too, I said. But gravity does what it wants. Email me nothing. Touch nothing. If you move one finger without our authorization, I'll put your bar number on a billboard. He exhaled through his nose, the way men do when they think you're emotional. Helen, threats. Warnings, I said. And they're free. He ended the call. I looked at Carla. He'll try something faster now. She said. Cornered rats don't plan, they lunge. The afternoon stretched long. Eli built a foam brick fort in my living room and permitted us to enter if we used passwords. Laura fell asleep on the couch with her hand on his ankle, as if anchoring him in place. I sat at the dining table with my notes, drawing lines, names, arrows, times. At 4, my phone buzzed with a message from Kincaid. Locker rental near O'Hare in Finch's assistant's name. Unit number attached. Want CPD? Both, I texted back. Send me a uniform team and send me the key code. I'm closer, I'll go first. Carla grabbed her jacket. I'll drive. In the car, rain ticked against the windshield, Chicago's more disciplined cousin to Florida's chaos. Carla drove like a person who knew the difference between speed and haste. I called Laura from the passenger seat. Lock the door behind us, I said. If anyone calls from a number you don't know, let it go to voicemail. Okay. Tell Eli I'm getting more pancake supplies. Mom, she said quietly, be careful. Always. Traffic near the airport was a mess of brake lights and brake light tempers. We slid into the storage facility lot at dusk, a low-slung building with units that smelled like cardboard and dusted regret. The manager barely looked up when I flashed my retired ID. He'd seen enough cop shows to cooperate. Unit 317. The keypad accepted the code on the second try. The door rolled up with a metal sneeze. Inside were bankers' boxes stacked neatly, a space heater, and a collapsible chair. Predators are archivists. They keep trophies and templates. I pulled on gloves, slit the first box, and stared at the contents. Passports, driver's licenses, social security cards. Different names, same face. Ben looked back at me a dozen ways. Carla whistled low. That'll do. The second box was worse. Binders tabbed with widow names, copies of obituaries, sticky notes with dates. A third held medical articles clipped and highlighted, all about therapies for children, the kind of jargon that sounds like compassion but functions like camouflage. A fourth box held something that made me colder than any rain ever had. A folder embossed with Finch's firm's logo, full of draft agreements. On the top, Eli Carter Special Needs Trust, proposed therapeutic disbursement schedule. Carla took photos, methodical, silent. I called Kincaid. We've got his map, I said. And our lawyer's signature all over it. Stay put, he said. CPD is 5 minutes out. We'll wait. I closed the folder and pressed my palms to the cool cardboard. Somewhere between Port Canaveral and this dim corridor, my old life had fully returned, not the chase, but the choice. The choice to be the person who steps in, or the one who looks away. Carla glanced at her watch. 5 minutes? Maybe 3. The hallway hummed with fluorescent fatigue. Far off, a door clanged. Then the lights flickered. A soft footstep. A shadow cut our doorway in half. The shadow split the doorway, then stepped in. A man's silhouette against the humming fluorescence, umbrella dripping, collar up. I knew that posture before the face caught up. Gerald, I said. Finch stopped, eyes skating over the boxes, over Carla's stance, over my gloved hands. He tried on a smile that didn't reach anything living. Helen. Imagine my surprise. Carla shifted so he had to choose whom to watch. Evening, counselor. Units rented through a proxy tied to your office. Want to explain the passports? He glanced at the nearest stack, then at his watch, as if time itself could serve as counsel. Client materials, he said smoothly. Privilege. Nothing is privileged in a storage locker full of dead women's paper trails, I said. Step back. He took one step in. Another shadow rippled across his expression, annoyance at being forced to act faster than planned. Storms make people honest. The rain had turned his hair darker, younger, almost boyish. Predators know how to choose faces that say trust me. Let's be adults, he murmured. You're overwrought, Helen. These are exemplars for estate trainings. Mr. Walker asked me to compile. Mr. Walker? Carla's laugh was quick and cold. Which one? Mark, Greg, Daniel? Or the funeral edition? His jaw tightened. You're making a mess of a perfectly explainable. A door clanged down the corridor. He measured the distance to the sound, to the roll-up, to us. I saw it land. Not enough time to talk us into anything. He had come to remove, not to negotiate. Hands, Carla said. Let me see your hands, counselor. He raised them, palms out, wet cuffs inching back. His right sleeve stopped mid-forearm. A sliver of plastic gleamed in the shadows, clear and mean. Sleeve, I said. For the first time, his eyes met mine, flat as a lens. We're all very emotional. Sleeve. He flicked his wrist. Everything that followed happened in the tiny space between one intention and the next. Finch pivoted toward the boxes. No, not the boxes, the heater, because heat erases as well as warms. Carla lunged, catching his elbow. The plastic flashed, quick and ugly. He jabbed short, practiced, low line like a man who'd rehearsed where an artery lived. Knife. Carla barked. Not a knife. A syringe. The needle nicked her jacket and clinked against the concrete. He went for it again. My body remembered rooms where decisions had to be made before the feeling arrived. I reached the doorway, yanked it wider to break his ankle, and shouted down the hall, "Police." Here. Finch shoved, hard. The syringe spun, landed near the heater. He dove. I kicked it away. His shoulder slammed my hip. The breath left me like the last note of a song. Then the hall filled with footsteps and blue. "Hands where we can see them," a voice barked. Finch froze, then uncoiled with something that looked like surrender and wasn't. He launched, not at the officers, but at me, the grandmother who had seen too much. His left hand feinted toward my face. His right hand found the syringe I'd thought I'd sent far enough. In the same motion, one of the uniforms slid beside me, pressed cold plastic into my palm, a taser, and said the quietest word I have ever heard, "Please." I didn't think. I aimed center mass and squeezed. Electricity snapped the air. Finch buckled as if cut from strings and went down hard, the syringe skittering under a shelf. The officer stepped over him, cuffing with a practiced rhythm, reading him rights that sounded like a lullaby I'd forgotten. Carla picked up the evidence with trembling tongs. The needle still held a filmy bubble. "Label this now," she told the nearest cop, voice steady by force. "If that's what I think it is, I want chain of custody ironclad." "Fentanyl?" I asked, breathing again. Her eyes lifted to mine. "Or carfentanil. Either way, that drop could stop a horse." Finch lay on his side, blinking, fury leaking through the chemical stillness. When he focused, he chose me. "You don't understand what you've done," he hissed. "I do," I said. "I chose the living." They sat him on the collapsible chair. The rain outside softened, the way a storm does when it realizes a city will not break. CPD photographed every page, every passport. They called for a hazmat kit and an extra supervisor. Someone cracked a joke too loud and apologized. The fluorescent hum kept humming. A detective I knew from years back arrived, hair grayer, eyes unchanged. "Carter," she said, and gripped my shoulder like a sister. "We'll package this right." Carla gave her the quick tour, aliases, obits, the trust drafts with Eli's name printed crisp as accusation. The detective's mouth pulled tight. "And your attorney here brought a party favor," she said, nodding at the bagged syringe. "Real festive." Finch tried for the reasonable man again. "This is outrageous. I came here to secure client materials after a break-in." "Great," the detective said. "You can secure a lawyer. You'll need one." They led him past me. He paused, searching for leverage in my face. "Think of your daughter," he said softly, venom in velvet. "The press. The questions. Eli's future. You could have kept this quiet." "I tried quiet," I said. "You sent a man with a tide of names to marry my child." For a heartbeat, something like admiration flickered in him. "You were always the problem," he murmured. "Even before you knew." "Especially before I knew," I said. "They took him." The hallway breathed. Carla leaned against the doorframe and let her head knock lightly against the metal. "I'm going to buy the man who handed you that taser steak the size of O'Hare," she muttered. I swallowed, suddenly aware of my hands shaking. "Make it 2. We stayed until the inventory sealed, until every box wore a number like a stern label in a museum. The detective promised me scans by morning. "Go home," she said. "Lock things down. We'll sit on this unit and chase every name." Outside, the rain had thinned to mist. The airport lights bled through like patient stars. Carla drove in silence for a mile before speaking. You know this doesn't stop him. Finch? No. But he's out of Ben's pocket now. That changes the math. She drummed the wheel with 2 fingers. He'll come hunting the softest point. You, Laura, the kid. I know, I said. He'll pick a kitchen. They always pick a kitchen. It's where we forget to be afraid. We passed a diner pulsing neon at the edge of a frontage road. The sign promised pie like mothers used to make. Mine never made pie. She made the choice to leave instead, which meant I had learned early to make the other choice, to stay. When I got home, Laura met me at the door, eyes swollen, a sweater pulled over yesterday's t-shirt. She touched my face like she was counting proof. You're okay. I am. Gerald? In custody. She sagged with relief and horror braided together. He sent truffles this morning. Eli wanted one. I kissed her hair. I know. Eli barreled down the hall in sock feet and crashed into my legs. Grandma, we made a sign. It says no bad guys. He pulled me toward the living room. On a sheet of printer paper, in green crayon, a child's handwriting shouted its spell. Laura had taped it above the deadbolt like a charm. It works, I said. I saw 2 turn around already. He giggled, then yawned, then fell sideways onto the couch as if sleep had decided for him. Laura tucked a blanket over his knees and looked at me across his small, solemn face. How long do we have? She asked. A week, maybe less, I said. Enough time to make the house sharp. Sharp? Safe enough to cut. She nodded. Tell me what to do. We made a list on the back of a grocery receipt because it was the paper at hand. Replace the back door strike plate. Move knives to a high cabinet. Install a chain above Eli's reach. Keep the skillet on the stove. The skillet? She asked, trying to smile. Cast iron, I said. Our family heirloom. And as the city settled into its late-hour hush, I felt it again, that soft vibration under the floorboards that tells you a train is coming, even before the rails begin to sing. That night we made the house sharp. I moved like a woman setting a table no one would admit was for war. Doors rechecked, the chain installed, windows latched and chalked with a hairline so I could see if one lifted. I taped a tiny bell to the back door's hinge. I stacked mail and keys out of reach, slid the knife block into the oven drawer, and left on the stove what my mother had called the family inheritance. 1 black cast iron skillet that had survived marriages, blizzards, and 3 apartment fires. Laura followed me room to room with a screwdriver and the stubborn focus she had as a child when faced with a jigsaw puzzle. Eli colored on the floor by the couch, tongue poking at one corner of his mouth, every so often looking up to ask whether bad guys knew how to read signs. Some do, I told him. That's why we make the house extra boring for them. When he finally slept, we did not. I walked the perimeter until the repetition calmed me, then sat at the kitchen table with a pen and the slow breath that used to get me through interrogations. The refrigerator hummed. Pipes clicked. Chicago's winter wind nosed the windows and kept moving. At 2:11 a.m., the bell at the back door kissed the hinge. Not a ring, a brush. Laura's head lifted from the couch before she was fully awake. I held one finger up, warning, and stepped into the kitchen light, which I left low on purpose to make shadows do the work for me. A draft rippled the curtain over the sink. The chain was still set, the lock still turned. The bell kissed again. He didn't pick the lock. He pulled the pins. The door eased inward until the chain caught with a soft metal sigh. A hand reached through the gap, slow, unhurried, confident, 2 fingers testing the chain, then sliding back. A minute later the chain screws began to turn in their holes as if the house had grown tired of resisting. I lifted the skillet. He didn't kick the door. He opened it like a gentleman and stepped into the quiet we had polished for him. No mask. No hurry. A windbreaker in place of the tuxedo, a ball cap in place of the bow tie. He smelled of cedar and the kind of laundry soap that sells the idea of clean. Hello, Helen, he murmured, closing the door without looking away from me. You left the light on. Habit, I said. It helps me see. And be seen, he said, smiling as if we shared a joke. He set a small canvas bag on the counter with the care a father uses to put down a sleeping baby. Peace offering. Laura likes chamomile, doesn't she? And for Eli, stickers with dinosaurs. I'm thoughtful when I'm allowed to be. Thoughtful men use the doorbell. The bell wakes children, he said. I'm a considerate stepfather. You're not a stepfather, I said. You're a delay. You're a mask someone claps on to make the monster look polite. He took one step closer, palms open, absorbing the insult like a man at a spa. Helen, no one wants you frightened. Least of all me. His eyes flitted to the skillet. You don't need that. Then don't make me need it. Put it down. His tone dipped, kind dropping into command. Please. I didn't. He looked past me toward the dark hallway, toward the couch where he knew Laura had slept, drank in the knowledge that he had reached our soft room. She will listen to you, he said. She wants to. So let's start over. Take out your phone. Tell Finch we were rash. You and I tell him we all want what's best for Eli. He'll fix the paperwork in the morning, and by afternoon this will be a story about miscommunication. Finch is under arrest, I said. And I don't take dictation from men who collect widows. For a beat his face was bare. Then the mask slid back. That was a misunderstanding. A confused clerk. A complicated client. You know how messy grief can be. I do, I said. I also know what a fentanyl burn looks like in a corner of a mouth when the coroner writes, cardiac arrest, because the family is tired. The bag on the counter gave itself away with a small, traitorous clink when his hand brushed it. That sound has a vocabulary. Pills, glass, or a needle rolling into the side seam. Mark, I said, softly enough to tighten a wire. Or Ben, or Daniel. Do you ever forget what name you're wearing when you say I love you? He smiled, delighted I knew the game. Never. It's all the same truth if you say it with enough attention. Behind him the curtain moved, Laura, barefoot, standing very still, her eyes wide but alive. He didn't see her. He was doing what men like him always do in kitchens at 2 a.m., admiring himself in the room's reflection. I told you you'd respect me, he said, leaning a hip against the counter and lowering his voice like a bedtime story. You and I are the same. We observe. We anticipate. We take necessary steps while polite people dither. You forgot one difference, I said. I don't hurt the ones who trust me. His hand slid into the bag and came out with the little barrel of the night's plan. No flourish. No monologue. Just the efficient intimacy of a man who has done this before. Thumb on the plunger, cap flicked to the floor, the silver of the needle catching the tired kitchen light. Laura moved first. She didn't scream. She stepped in fast and drove her elbow hard into his ribs the way I had taught her at 17 and she had laughed about ever needing. The breath left him with a sound like paper torn very neatly. His hand jerked. The needle veered. My skillet came down on his wrist with every year of my life behind it. The crack was more felt than heard. The syringe popped from his grip and skidded, a mean little fish flashing across tile. He tried for it with his left hand. Laura hooked his arm and twisted. I brought the skillet up again, higher, and this time I didn't aim for bone. I aimed for nerve. Metal rang against countertop. The syringe rolled beneath the cabinet toe kick and disappeared. He snarled, a wordless, animal sound, and lunged. We hit the pantry door and rattled the spice rack. Cumin snowed the air. Somewhere, a drawer opened and shut because the house had opinions. Eli, Laura gasped, not as a call but as a prayer. He heard the name and turned toward the hallway. That turn saved us. It gave me the half-second to shove him shoulder first into the fridge and to feel the deep thud of a body meeting something it cannot move. His cap flew. His pretty hair went wild and ordinary. The hallway filled with feet. Our CPD liaison had wired the house after the locker, simple tech, a silent button under my table lip. I must have hit it in the first blur without knowing. Blue jackets, measured voices, the kind of quiet I trust. Hands. Now. He flicked his gaze to me, and in it was the true face at last, small, furious, bewildered that a woman with gray roots and a skillet had altered his choreography. He went for the drawer anyway. I went for his wrist again. Laura stamped his foot with her full weight, old cheerleader balance turned to steel. He folded, not from pain but from surprise, and that was enough for 2 officers to fold him the rest of the way. On the floor he tried words. Set up. Crazy ex. You don't know who she is. She's unstable. Her husband. My husband is dead, I said. You don't get to use him. They cuffed him and read the familiar rites. He laughed through them like they were a magic spell that would fail on the last syllable and send the cuffs slithering off. The laugh went brittle when Carla appeared in the doorway, hair braided, phone already aimed, chain of custody already a path unfurling. Check the toe kick, I said. He dropped his heart there. An officer slid a ruler under the cabinet, coaxed the syringe out, and held it like a snake he did not wish to offend. It went into a hard box with a click I felt in my teeth. Another officer opened the canvas bag with 2 gloved fingers. Vials, wipes, caps, a wallet with a driver's license that said this week's name in a new state. A laminated therapy brochure with our last name spelled right. They sat him in a chair. Laura stood across from him and did not shake. He looked at her as if she were a light he could blow out if he wished hard enough. Sweetheart, he said, soft, almost tender. I forgive you. I know this isn't you. It is, she said. And I forgive me. He blinked at that, at the grammar of it, at the door it closed. The officers took him, and for a blessed 30 seconds the house only breathed. Eli's small voice floated from the hallway, brave and wobbly. Grandma? Is the sign working? It is, I said, and my voice didn't break. It worked exactly on time. He padded in, hair sleep must, dinosaur pajama knees gray with couch lint. He read the room like a boy who knows grown-up storms exist but trusts his roof. We made pancakes? He asked. We will, I promised. With extra spikes. When he curled against Laura on the couch and slipped back to sleep as if his body had made a wise decision, I washed my hands at the sink. Cumin still salted the air. My wrists shook only when the water hit. I let them. Carla stepped beside me and leaned her hip against the counter the way he had. You baited his pride, she said quietly. Then you made the kitchen tell the truth. It's where we forget to be afraid, I said. So I remembered. She nodded toward the skillet. Family heirloom. I dried my hands and set the pan back on the stove. We inherit what we choose to keep.